Before we begin, let me tell you of a king. You visit the castle of a wise king beloved by his people. He cares for the poor and the sick. He ensures equality before the law and forbids the strong from harming the weak. What would you think of such a king? Now, what if you learned the king had slaves who toiled long days, even the children and the elderly? Would it change the good the king does? Would it change your view of him as a person? What if he had enslaved them but said they would be freed after 5 years? Or 3 years? Or 1 year? What if only able-bodied men were enslaved for this time? Would any of this change your view of him as a person? What if none of that is true? But while in the throne room, a man arrives. He says that 20 years ago, when the king first came to power, the fields were in ruins. The people needed to commit to the last man to restoring the fields to avert the ruin of the kingdom, leaving none left to work the gold mine. Because the money was needed, the king sent his army to demand that 30 men from a band of free nomads work for 1 year in his gold mine. When the year was up, the men were paid generously and sent on their way free again. The kingdom thrives today. Does that change your view of the king? What if you learned that during that year when the man was gone, he missed the birth of his son and the death of his mother? Would that change your view of the king? What if you learned all of this is true and the king feels nothing for the man? This king loves his kingdom and his subjects and makes no apology that he would do anything to preserve them. It is his duty, it is his nature to care for his people, no matter what that takes. Does this make his kindness false? His generosity a lie? His virtues a sham? If every good deed comes from a pure heart dedicated to love, does it stay a good deed to know he would do evil in service of it? I've spent a great deal of time thinking on the character of SuYin, rewatching episodes, trying to identify and articulate what it was that I was seeing and feeling. Before I say anything else, though, I have to say, from a writing standpoint, this is a masterful achievement. Anything I say here is not a criticism. If anything, I hope it's a compliment that I have so much to say on this. But I should probably get on with smashing things. The thing that I keep hearing is a variant on Su got her shit together and Su changed and Lin couldn't see that. Here's my hot take on that. Lin was right all along. When she said, "I see right through you, you haven't changed," she was speaking the truth. Let me reiterate, this is masterful. Su is presented as a calm, kind, understanding matriarch. That's not a lie. That's not a mask. That's not deception. But it's also not everything that it appears to be. There are hints here and there, dropped carefully but precisely. I don't even know if there's a term for the emotional immaturity that I'm seeing here, so what I'm going to call it is benevolent narcissism. All those virtues, as I said, they're real. But remember what a wise half-god once said. It's easy to be a saint in paradise. When we look at the whole of Su's life, it is someone who wants to love and be loved, likely something that began in childhood as she and her sister competed for their mother's attention. The time comes when she realizes, after having all of her adventures, that she really wants to have a family. That's what's missing. She goes out, she gets a family. She wants to love and be loved again. And hey, that sounds good. Except if it's, I want to love you and I want you to love me. It's what I want. It's love with the self as the center. The purpose of loving you is not for your sake, but for my sake. Loving you fulfills me. Being the matriarch fulfills me. My position here fulfills all of my wants. It's why I say it's benevolent narcissism. The consequences of this behavior are, for the most part, not bad. The calm, the kindness, the understanding, they are all a fulfillment of a self-image. That is not faked, nor am I saying it doesn't count as acts of kindness. What I'm saying is that once you look at Su as the sun in her own personal solar system, every single thing she says and does, without exception, is transparent. Everyone bathes in the warmth of her matriarchy, and all orbit around her. This is not resulting in any harm for those who are in those orbits. Again, I can't say this enough. This is not deception. Now, I'm not saying that she is demanding to be the center of attention. All they have to do is just remain where she wants them. It's really no surprise that a child who didn't get the attention she craved, didn't feel the love she wanted, would make a perfect world where all love and are loved, and where she shines from the center of their lives. You don't need to change at your core if you can transform the entire world around you to conform with your desires. So, not a facade, but at the same time at its center, the wellspring of her behavior is nevertheless selfishness. This is why Beifong can't stand her, why she won't reconcile with her. Because not one word or action Su offers says, I want to reconcile. All it says is, I want this to be reconciled. Remember, this isn't just their conflict in their youth. The memory was so powerful for Beifong that she couldn't face it, struggled to get away from having to see it again. When her sister forever scarred her face. So painful, she couldn't endure it again. Time heals all wounds is not true. Ask anyone who has lost an eye. Her sister literally scarred her for life, and her mother let Su get away with it. As we saw, that wounded her, and the pain can deepen with time. An untreated wound can fester. Su claims to want there to be reconciliation, except it can't be when all you want is to have an inconvenient past forgotten. When it's not your wound, when it's not your scarred face looking back from every mirror, you can't be the one to decide then that the past doesn't matter. If you want to reconcile, you need to make 5 vital things clear. First, that I care about the pain you feel. Second, you have the right to feel the way you do about it. Third, whether I intended to or not, I'm the one who hurt you. 4, it hurts me knowing that I've hurt you. And 5, I want to reconcile with you because I want to be part of helping you heal. If you truly wish to reconcile, it can't be about you. It must be about the other person. And therein lies the problem. Because even with benevolent narcissism, it's all about SuYin at the core. When she spoke to Cora, Su deliberately whitewashed her past. She put the conflict on Toph's parenting, and the only description of herself and her behavior was a bit of a rebel, which she says with a small smile that segues into her adventurous life. In other words, she's painting rebel as not becoming a cop, but becoming an adventurer, when it should really be, I committed literal crimes and permanently wounded my sister for not letting me get away with it. In every instance, she puts the lack of reconciliation on Beifong, that she has to, quote, come around. Not just her words, but her tone make very clear what this is. Her, I tried. And that Beifong has done a bang-up job of keeping the family apart. Rings hollow when, now that they can talk, she casually just brushes the chance aside. For someone who wanted to reconcile, she sure is quick to throw away the chance to do so she can show her sons playing a game they made up and making a huge metal banana. If she would have asked to have a moment to talk with Beifong here in private, and Beifong walked out, that's trying. If she says, wow, she's still mad because I've fucked up her face, well, I have a family to show off, let's go. That's not trying. I make a big deal out of this because it shows you that Su's goal is not reconciliation. Reconciliation is a means towards an end. Having Beifong in her perfect world. Well, she's here. Thus, no need to reconcile. No effort is made to even try. And that includes what should have been obvious. When she learned that Opal got caught in the middle of this, that should have made clear that this couldn't be put off any longer. Now Su's children were being hurt by this feud. But she only says she had no right to talk to Opal like that. And that's the end of that. Ask yourself why she would respond that way. Because to take any action on that would be in conflict with her self-image. That's how deeply her selfishness runs. Even her child being caught in the crossfire fails to motivate her to action. No wonder Beifong doesn't want to be here. She can see that her sister hasn't changed, and everyone only answers that she's the one with the problem. She cries when she's alone, but not because she's alone, because she's alone with her pain, even in a room full of people. Because in the center of that room is Su, the one who inflicted it upon her, now surrounded by an entire choir, all singing the same thing. What pain? This, of course, is also consistent with replying to Opal's excited desire to go to the Northern Air Temple to be trained with a, "Nonsense! This is where Opal's home and family are. You can train her here." Su expects Opal to remain in her perfect world. She wants Beifong in it only to make it more complete, not because she desires to actually solve any problems. She's decided there aren't any problems, and therefore, if things aren't fixed, then it must be Beifong's fault. And she has no problem with letting Cora know that that's where all the blame in this lies. The point that then brings it all home was when Beifong confronted Su. She repeats that she can see through her, that Su has not really changed, and Su's response, and you must admire the originality of the technique, is to prove she's absolutely right. As a child, Beifong showed her the reality of her situation, and Su responded by unintentionally wounding her. Now Beifong has done so again, and Su responds by intentionally wounding her. The worst part is that these words are not said in anger. This is not passion compelling the saying of something one wishes one could take back. Beifong has dared to challenge Su's self-image, so she metaphorically stabs her through the heart for it. Not hot, not cold, not with malice. The cruelty that only a narcissist is capable of. That it is an indisputable fact that refusing to provide what I want means you deserve your pain. To reiterate, this is impressively sophisticated work, and that doesn't mean that SuYin is a villain, but it means that she has a very serious character flaw right at the heart of her very being. It's something that you may not notice, but perhaps, now that I brought it to your attention, if you watch what she does, and remember her as the sun at the center, warming all with her light, wanting to love and be loved and everyone in their place, see how well it seems to explain some of the stranger things she might do.